I'm going to show you guys how to make a video, how to make games, not videos. So just open your Xcode and do a new project, and just select games, press next, and give it your game name. I'll just call it game demo. Um, the language will be Swift, and the technology will be Sprite Kit. Um, just press next. So when making a game, let me see. I want to put this somewhere in my tutorial. Alright, so now you have something like this. Here's your game scene, your action. We're not going to be using action, so just because we're going to program everything manually, programmatically, I mean. So let's just delete this file here. You won't be needing that. Move it to the trash. Alright, this is your game scene. Game view controller. Alright, this just loads your game view. Alright. So in your game scene, when you're making games, you got to decide how do you want the user to play your game. Do you want it to be landscape mode, portrait mode, or a little bit of both? Now, most games, when it's just one hand, you can play with one hand. If it's a game that you can do one hand playing, you want something that's just portrait. But if you're going for like a landscape, like two-handed game, where you can shoot and move the enemy, move the player, I mean, you want something landscape. So in my case, since I'm gonna be showing you guys how to do controls, and we're doing game you can play with two hand, I'll do landscape. So I'm just gonna close the portrait and just do landscape mode. Alright, so let's go back to here, and in the game world, in the game scene, I mean here, you see it's in landscape mode. Let's change that and make it let's pick a device just for your game. I like to pick this S, and yeah, keep it landscape because that's what we're going for here. So in your game world here, make sure it's the same as your class name here. So here's your class name. It's a game scene class called game scene, right? So in this game scene, when you move to view, you see the hello world label, all this stuff, and it's just gonna do some kind of drawing for you. We're gonna remove all this because we don't need this. Let's see, we won't need this. Touch up, we won't do that. Touch down, we'll remove this. And we'll move this. Touch begin. Let's see. Touch move. Touch end, touch cancel. We'll move this. Won't need this. Alright. So here we'll do touch move, touch end, touch begin. Remove this. Remove this. Remove this. And for view did move to view. We're gonna remove this because this is the default thing they give you. We're not gonna add a label here. And let's go back to our game scene here. So the first thing you want to do is delete this label. When you make a game, you want a background, right? So in a background would be something like the color of your background, or it could be like a node that you add to represent your background. So here I'm just gonna find a background. This is what they gave you, but I'm gonna add my own little background here. So let's see if I can. I also recommend, if you guys make game, to download something called Game. This is a good tool you can use to make your sprite and animation and your background. In this case, since we're not going to make the background yet, I'm just going to make the default, just make the background color blue, like sky color or whatever, for this app we're making. Let me make something a little darker. That's too bright, like that. Alright, first we want have our character, right? So let's create one using this GIMP software. So in this GIMP software, you can do like a new um, thing. Let's just make a simple character. For example, let's make a circle person, something like, I don't know. Um, let's do that. First, let me erase some of this stuff here. Oh yeah, in GIMP you can do something like this, where you make add some alpha channel that allows you to remove some items that you don't want to be shown in the game. So, like I said, let's make a character, just a circle. Let's make it simple. Let's color him in um, yellow. And let's give our character also some eye. And let's color that eye white. You know, just some simple stuff like that. Just another eye right here. Boom. And let's color that white also. And we'll give our character a moth. And color that white. So this is pretty much how you make your game asset. And what you want to do is make it up to PNG, and I'm gonna cut this guy out and about like that, and this will represent our player. Our player right here. Here's our player. Boom. Crop that out. Let me crop it out some more. I feel like it's not perfect. I like to be as close as I can to the edge of the artwork like that. Enter, and let's export this. Just press export, and I'm just gonna do it somewhere in desktop. I'll just call it player, for example. Let's see, export. Boom, I just export as PNG. Yep, just like that. And now you can, if you close this and go to asset, you can drop the image you have. I saved mine under desktop, so scroll down. There you go. That's my character. So what you want to do is just kind of drag this here, and boom. Then you can now use this in your game scene. So in my game scene, I have nothing right now, right? But I want a character. So edit, view, show library, and here just search up the character asset you put in, and this I call it player. So when you go back to your game scene here and add that, I'm just going to show library and search that object. Let's go to here. There you go. Boom. Let's shrink him. This is our player in our game, right? And when you make a game, your player, you want him to have physics, so nothing just passed through him, right? So there's many physics but you can do. Like alpha mass means the only thing that shows will be the physics boundary. We can do a circle, rectangle. In this case, since my character is already a circle, I'm gonna do a circle. So the physics will be circle. I'm gonna make him affected by gradient, of course. No rotation, dynamic, so that way he can move. He can be moved. One more thing we gotta add to our game is ground. Let me just undo all this and just draw like a rectangle shape to represent the ground. In our case, I'm gonna make it green, like the grass, for example. Alright, so let's pick a grass. Okay, boom, boom, and let's crop this out and save this image, and this will be our ground. We'll just do that. Boom, and export this and call it ground. Boom, export it. Now go back to Xcode and let's import the image into our asset here so we can use it in our game. So go here, click on your ground, and just drag into your assets folder. Now you have your ground um, um, game thing you can use. So go back to your scene here, and let's just add the ground to our scene. There's your ground. Let's drag it. Boom, put it here. For the ground of our game, we want it to be in the bottom of our device, right? So this represents our device, and this is our player. We have a ground here. Our ground needs to also have a physics. By default, you'll have let's just do a bond rectangle physics. I don't want it to be affected by gravity. I don't want it to move, so I'm gonna check all those. By default, it's gonna have a character. This here, the bit mass collision are for like the collision detection. You'll learn about that later. I'll show you guys about it later in the maybe next episode. But for now, don't worry about it because it has this default number. It will collide with anything, even player and whatever object that has a physics body. So now that you have your um, element, they're of type sprite node, so you have to give them a name. Right now, I don't have a name for them, so this is gonna be. I'm just gonna call this one player, and this one ground. And in your game scene, you want to access those element, right? So in your game, you have a player, right? So let's do a variable called player of type s k sprite node. And let's do the same here for ground. Let's see. Yeah, go. Alright, so now we have our two variables that represent our player and ground. To add it to the scene, let's go to VUD load. Here we want to do self to access the self, and then the scene add node. Let me see. Node. Give me a second here. Sometimes I forget. So I'm gonna look at my other game and look at how I did it. Boom, boom, boom. So what you want to do is you want to go. Let me see. Add the characters. Where was that? There you go. This is how you want to do it. Alright, let me close this. So, alright, back to our game here. So, let's, to add player to the scene, you'll do something like this. Player equal, boom, erase this. Self, child with name, and remember we name it player in the scene here, so we name it player just like that. Make sure it's the same. And the enemy class in this case no is just because that's from other class, and just sprite node because it's a sprite node. So that's how you add it to the scene. Same thing with the ground. Just do ground and then just do this ground. Alright, touch move. Now we want to control our player, right? How do we control our player? Move up, down, left, right, for example, right? So we want something we can touch, right? Right now our game has nothing we can touch, no controllers. So let's make a simple controllers. So back to our game, let's just edit this. Let's just make a button, right? For left, right. One for left, one for right. Okay, so what we want to do is, let me make a button red, for example. I'm going to make a rectangle. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do a free select where my button's gonna be like a triangle for like left movement and right movement. Like that. Like that. Drag it up a little bit. That. More like that. Just like that. And now we have our arrow. And let's paint this red. You can whatever color you want, but I'm just gonna do red. Um, Boom. Alright, now let's crop it so we can have an arrow we can use to represent our left button. Boom. Alright, let's export this and call it left button and export it to desktop. Also, I'm gonna in this image I'm gonna flip it because I want to do a right image, and I'm gonna export this as right button. Right button. Export it. Alright, just like before, you can add it to your asset folder in your project by just going there and going to your desktop. And here you go, I have two items here. I just created PNG folder. Just kind of hold, actually just drag and drop them. You can select them both by holding shift, I believe. Yep. Drop them into your thing, and then you have your right and left. Let's go back to our game scene and add our controllers here. So in our game scene, we'll do controls. Add a controls. Go to view, show library. Add a left button here, and just call it left button. Okay. And let's resize that. Alright, just like so. Maybe right here on our screen. Cool, just like that. Alright, let me copy one and move it here, and I'm gonna call this right button. Let's change the texture to our right button texture, and let's make it the same size. Here you'll see the size of this thing. I'll make the width and height same size, so I'll just copy that and change that width to that same value. Enter. Let's look at the height here. Copy that and make the height the same. Boom. Enter. So what I want to do is I want to add it just next to this one, just like that. Now I have a left and a right button, right? So let's make a variable to represent those left and right button. I'm going to copy this and just, because I'm lazy. And let's do another one called right button. Right button. So to add that, we'll do the same thing just like we did here. Just do two more. That way we can access and control it in our scene. We'll call it left button. Okay, and just give it the same name as what you name it in the scene. Let's call this right button. Oops. Right button. Right button. Boom. Now you have your left and right button. So in your touch begin, touch move, touch end is where you, of course, manipulate your controllers and what happened when we touch a certain node. For example, when our sprite node, some node represent our player or ground, and some are our button. So our controls. So let me go back to my other game, see if I'm doing this right. So in here, touch begin. This is a way to do it. Boom, touch begin. Blah, blah. Okay, so we want to check for touch location. Okay. This is what I want to do. I want to iterate through all the touches. So we do the same thing here in our touch begin, right? Boom. So first what we do is we look for all the touches in touch, and then let the location be the location that we're touching. Okay. And node represent our touch point at that touch location. So let's see. Now we just gotta check each node. Okay. If let's do an if statement. If node is node.name, because if every node have a name, right? Here, it's gonna be underscore node.name equal our object name, for example, left button. Let's say we're touching the left button. Copy that. We want to decide what to do here. Same thing with the right. maybe move player right, right? We'll just do a comment. And here, left, and here we'll do left. So that's how um make your control. So in this case, since our control don't do anything yet, um, I like to also make the control seem like it's blinking when it's being touched, so the user know it's being touched. So what I like to do is when the user touches the controller, I want to change the F file. F file represents the visibility of the node. So in this case, let's change our left button that F file to 0.5. 0.5 that represents half visibility. Same thing with the right button when it's being touched. That way, when you touch, you can see it's being touched. What I also like to do is when I go to my touch N method here, I also like to reset those things. Let's say you're done touching this button, for example. You want to change the alpha back to 1. Same with this thing. Boom. Alright, so now let's just run this code so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to run this in a simulator called iPhone Pro 14, for example. Like built, no error, nothing. So there you go. Just give it a second there. Alright. Here is our device. Remember, the way I had my game was I designed it so it can be played in landscape mode. So let's rotate our device so it's in landscape mode, just like that. And that can be changed. Just go in here in your project and click on your target, and you can just, let me see, build setting. It's here somewhere. General, I believe. Yep, right here. I'm gonna do a require full screen for this one. That way you can play full screen. Alright, now that it's loading. Oh, let's return it. Boom. As you can see, the right arrow and the left arrow blink when touch. That let the user knows that it's being touched, but nothing's happening, right? But we want our touch to control our player, right? So let's do that. For example, let's just show that happening. So to do that, we want to go to back to our code here that's manipulating that scene, and we want to manipulate the player. Move player left could just be implying impulse, or we just updating the position to the left a little bit. So player is a sprite node object, so you can access its position. That's X locations. You want to move it left and right? We don't want to move up or down. So let's just set that to equal. Maybe every time we press it, the play position is added to, I don't know, +5, for example, right? To move 5 to the, actually this one moving to the left, so we're -5. In this case, we want to move to the right, so +5. And that will update the player's position. So here we go. Let me play that again. Boom. Here we go. So if I press this, it's going to move to the left. It's going to move to the right, right? However, we don't want this here where the player is over the button, right? So let's fix that. In our game scene, every game aspect, the game node, such as our sprite node here, has a Z position. You see the R set is 0 because um, the thing on top is by default on top of things on the bottom. It's gonna show through. So to fix that, what I want to do is make the Z position of our controls one more than the position of our game item. So let's change this to 1, and that should fix it. Or you can move it to the top, but I just want to change it to 1 more than the game item itself. So now if you run this code again, you won't have that issue. As you can see, it's behind the controllers now, and that's how we do it. But in this, we don't want it to be um, every time you press this at 5, right? You want it to move continuously, right? So how do you make an object move continuously? Well, you want it to update its position, right? You can either change its x value, or you want to apply impulse to it, right? So because um, player has a physics body, just like our ground has a physics body, a bounding rectangle, we can apply impulse to it. So in our game scene here, let's go back to the code here. Instead of updating the position, let's just apply impulse to a player. So player dot physics body dot apply impulse. Let's see here. And impulse requires a vector, the direction in x direction and a y direction. So let's do a GC vector. Let's create the xdy. That's how. I'll just call it impulse vector. Give me a second here. Vector equal GC vector. So I'll create a vector for the impulse because you want the player to move to the right. You want this to be. It requires a double, so 0.0. Because you don't care about it moving up. You want it to move to the right. So for this one, let's do I don't know, 50.0 for the impulse, and let's pass that into our impulse method here, just like so. Same thing for our moving player to the left. The only difference here is instead of applying to the right positive number, you want to apply a negative number, and that will make the player move, being pushed that direction to the left. So if I play this again, you will see that the player will be pushed to the left and to the right. See? Alright, that's a different way of moving character. If you want the player to move continuously to the left and right, maybe while it's being touched, you want it to keep moving. You can do like a while statement here, or you can do this where you can. There's many ways to move a player. Let's say instead of impulse, you want to do some just like before, right? So update its position, just like in Pac-Man. You know how when you press left, right, up, or down in the joystick, it go up or left, right, down until you change direction. We can do that here too. So in this case, let's do player dot position dot x plus 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 equal 5, for example. I mean, the player position will always be added to 5 every time you press this button. So for this one, let's go left, so it'll be negative, so it's constantly being subtracted, and this will keep it moving. If I'm not mistaken, it should keep it moving to that direction. Hold on, I guess not. Let's see, where is that? I have another game that I create here that kind of working on, not quite done yet. So let me look at that and see how I did the movement, just to remind myself. Play with touch move. Oh, there you go. You want it when it's moving. Okay. Alright, so touch begin is just when you touch down, but while you're still on it, when it's the touch is being moved inside like a node, you can do it under here. Let me see. +5 +2. Let's do, if you change this to a wall, that should fix it. That should keep it moving while it's being touched. Alright, let's play that. Alright, guess not. Let's see what happened if I put this in my touch move statement. Alright, I'll play it. Alright, just hang on here for a little bit. Let me see. What do I do differently here? Put that back. Move down. Alright. Okay. That's two way to move. Player, let's close that. So what we want to do is we want to move the player continuously when the button is being pressed until the button is released, then the player will be not removed. For that, let's do a little trick here. So what I want to do is let's create a variable, true or false. Player moving left. Let's set to go false, right? Go false. So when you press left button, we want to update that variable. Alright, let's update that variable. Let's remove all this. Or just comment out for now. We don't really care about that right now. So when the user press, we want to update that to true. Oh, let's do another one. Play moving right. Moving right. Right. So in game making, sometimes you have to just play around a little bit and find the right controls that works for you. So in this case, I'm just gonna update that value. So when the user is pressing left, of course, the player will keep going left. But then when the user press right, I want to update that to false. And the same thing here. When the user is moving right, this should false. This only be true when it's in here. When the player is moving right, you want to set the moving right variable to true, and the left to false, and vice versa. So if the player is moving left, of course that's true, and right is false. If the player is moving right, moving right is true, moving left is false. And then one method that does the updating is this. This gets called each frame is render, so it's um, allows you to keep everything up to date. That could be like your game score, point ammo, or for example, the node's position. So in this case, I'm going to do just an if statement. If player moving right, here's where I add my code for that moving right, moving left position. So this player is moving right is true. And the render update method here, I'm gonna, well, since moving left, I'm gonna do this. And then also, if the player is moving right, you wanna do that. So every time the user press the button left or right, it's gonna update the value of this, right, either true or false. Then this method, for each frame is rendered, it's gonna check for this and does this. So while it's true, it's gonna keep doing this, and while it's false, it's gonna keep doing this. For left, if it's moving left, it's gonna do this. If it's moving right, it's gonna do this. So this is our workaround to keep the player moving while the button is being pressed. So let's run that again, and you can see what I'm talking about here. So if I press right, left, let me see. Hold on, what's going on here? Player plus 5. See, plus 5. Let's try this again. Plus 5. Let's do that. Actually, I don't want to put this here. I want to put this when the touch end. So when you finish touching, when end, I want player moving left equal false. And this one, I want to do player moving right equal false. Right equal false. So here you have false, false, true, true. Let's see if that works. If my love, oops. What did I put it? Touch in? Oh, let's touch move. I want to do this also in touch begin. Copy. Let's begin. So there you go. So now when you press this button, you can see the player move left, right, left, right, left, right. So one thing we're missing, let's say you want our player to be able to jump over something, right? In this case, we don't have a button for making the player jump over something. In game, you usually have another button for jumping, shooting, and that kind of thing. Let's add our jumping button. Also, I'm gonna turn on something here in our view controller, which load our view as an SK scene, and this is if you look at our place here, it's just an SK scene. Let's turn on our node count. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Let's see. That. Show physics. That will allow you to see the physics of the different node in the game. We'll turn this off later. So let's go to our scene. As I said before, we don't have a jump button, so let's make one. Again, go to your game program. It's free, so this is really good to use. See, and let's erase that. And let's make a button for jump. In this case, I'm just gonna make a rectangle, and then let's just put the word jump in it. For example, actually, I'm gonna color it in first. I'm gonna make it yellow. Why not, right? So yellow, and then the word right word here, jump, like that. Maybe a little bigger than that. Maybe, I don't know. And then center it, or not. Anyway, let's just cut out that word. Let's export that. There's many things you can do with GIMP, but I'm just gonna do something simple. Let's call it jump. B-U-T-T-O-N. And let's see. So export your desktop, and desktop, or is it? Let's see. There you go. There's our jump button. So in our game asset again, what you want to do is go to asset, so you can load that asset in there, and drag jump in there. Boom, done. And there's your jump button, and then your game scene. Let's add that to our game scene. All right. File view, show library, and just look for jump button. There you go. Boom. There we go. There's our jump button. It's that simple, really. And let's just call this jump button. And remember, before we can use it, we gotta connect it to our game scene. So just like before, we want to create the variable to represent that jump button, right? So here, let's call this jump button. And let's make sure the name is the same, jump button. Okay. So in here, just like here, we want to add that, right? Let's just copy this so I don't have to redo it. And call it jump button. Boom, finished for you. Copy, copy, boom. Now we have access to it in our code. So go back to touch begin, right? Just like that. So we want to do check the node we're touching and then just do something with it here, just like here. So if the node name is jump button, and then we do something, right? You want the player to jump, right? But also you want to let the user know that it's being touched. So let's change the alpha to half, so it looks like it's being touched. So the same thing, when touch n here, we want to do the same thing. Touch n, but set it back to 1. So it just blinks when you touch it. Alright, so when touch, let's see. We don't have to do anything in touch move right now. This is not needed because we're only working with touch begin and touch end. Touch move is when you're moving. You touch something, but you're also moving around it. Let me see here. Yep, you're also moving around it. That's what this is. So let's just comment it out. I'm not gonna worry about this right now. So in the jump button here, we want to do something, right? So let's say jump player, for example. And remember how we said when we move an object, we can do it in multiple ways. You can apply impulse, or we can update distribution, right? So in this case, when we move our player here, what we do is we update distribution by adding 5, right? We can also apply impulse to the player's distribution. So let's say here, instead of doing this, I'm applying impulse, right? Let's just do negative here because we're moving left, and moving right, let's do positive. Right, that's also the same thing as updating distribution, except in this case you're pushing the node, the player node, that much to the left and that much to the right when the player is being pushed left or right. In jumping, we want the player to be impulse, but we want the player to be impulse upward. So in this case, we'll do something like the same thing, except the player will be going upward. So this, the y should be the x. Direction should be 0, and the y should be however much you want the player to be upward. Let's say 100 in our case, right? That should make the player jump. So let's run that, and that's how you make the player jump in your game. Let's try this, and there you go. Player jumping. But you don't, that's it, that's a problem there. You don't want the player to keep jump while it's in mid-air, right? There's a solution to that. Alright, let me show you guys this solution before I end this video. So I have a project that I've been working on. I'm gonna open it, just call it side scroll. And in this one, I have a method for doing that. I don't always remember what I code in, but I have a method for jumping. Let me see if this will load properly. There you go. For that, so before I leave, I want to show you guys how to make the player jump, but also don't prevent it from jumping when it's in mid-air. Okay. So let's go to touch begin here. I have a button here somewhere for jumping the player. There you go. You have a jump leeway. Blah, blah. I'll just copy this. And let me close this. Alright. So we implemented a jump for the player, but we didn't implement a way to prevent the player from jumping while in mid-air. So in this case, I'm going to do this. This is a method I created for jumping the player and prevent the player from jumping. So this method it just prevents the player from being jump if it's in falling or moving in the air, but when the player is not moving in the mid-air, it allows you to apply the jump. In this case, I put 115, substitute 100. But the force is, let's just do 100. That number can be adjusted depending on your gameplay. Just kind of play around with it. And this code here should prevent your player from jumping in mid-air. So let's run that again, and now you should have a game where you can jump your player but prevent it from jumping mid-air. See, I cannot jump the player unless the player is if the player is stand still, you can jump it. But if the player is this prevents you from jumping while the player is falling, pretty much. But the player, if the player's what you call velocity of up or down is 0, then you can jump again. So if the player is not falling, you can jump. Whoop, too fast. That's gotta be adjusted too. But anyway, that's the basic of how you make controls and control player in game in Swift. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Please subscribe and like my video and support me. The more support I have, the more I can make more of these videos and show you guys how to make games. So thanks guys. Let me see here. Oops. Alright, let me go to my Wondershare here and stop the recording.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Wait, what the heck? Did I oh, there it is. Stop.